You are listening to Heart Over Ego Radio, a network of shows offering healing and guidance for your beautiful journey. Tune in on Mondays for the Alchemy Sisters, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern. Tuesdays, tune in and tune up. Body Awareness and Self-Care, 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Wednesdays, One for All is Love, 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Thursdays, Unbound with Cynthia Martin, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. Fridays, The Witching Hour with Green Witch Village and the Alchemy Sisters, 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And on Fridays, Rain Radio, 10 Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Saturdays, Creating Heaven on Earth, 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And Sundays, Everyday Psychic Radio at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. This is the Heart Over Ego Radio Network.
Hello and welcome to Creating Heaven on Earth, ascending from the 3D to the 5D. You are here with Mandee Elam, and most Saturdays I like to host a discussion with a special way shower and light worker in this world about what we're doing to ground our collective vision of heaven to earth, what the difference is between the dimensions, and what we as individuals can do to assist the collective. So I'm really excited today to welcome on our guest. She is an absolutely beautiful multidimensional healer and a light throughout this world. Her name is Jen Dodson. Welcome, Jen. How are you today?
Hi, Mandee. I'm wonderful. Well, I just take a beach, putting my feet into the sea to ground myself because I'm really excited to be here, and I do feel very honoured that you've asked me to come on and to have this conversation with you. I am truly honoured. Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful. Jen and I know each other, and we have tons of mutual friends online and through many beautiful Facebook groups. We've never had the privilege to meet in person yet. I'm sure the opportunity may present itself, but I'm really excited to have this chat with you today. And today is the solstice, so happy summer solstice.
Yeah, aren't we fortunate? It's such a beautiful day here today, and normally we would be going off to Stonehenge or to a similar kind of high spot maybe to see the sunset, and then tomorrow to see the sunrise, which would be glorious. But unfortunately, because of the situation we're currently experiencing on the planet, we're not allowed to gather. So there's a lot of pagans out there who are probably a little bit upset. They are going to be streaming it live. I think it's English Heritage who are now look after the site. They're the guardians of the stones, if you like.
Okay.
And it used to be every year, twice a year, the stones during the winter solstice and the summer solstice, we would be allowed to gather for free. We wouldn't have to pay to get in, but of course now you have to pay to get into the stones. So unfortunately, the only way to see the sunrise over the Hillstone this year would be on their Facebook page, I think.
Wow, that's wild. And so how far do you live from Stonehenge, and how often have you been going?
Well, I guess Stonehenge is probably about 2.5 hours, 3 hours from us, but we've got a camper. And so what we normally do is we would go and we would camp in our camper van, literally. It's almost by the size, it's not by the size of the stones, but it's closer than the actual official car park. So we're a bit lucky, really. We sort of do our wild camping, and we always spend a few days there. And it is a lovely spot. I would say that probably my favourite spot is actually the Avebury stones, which are a little less popular, but the energy there feels a lot more special, and you can actually get up to the stones and really enjoy them without having to pay. So
How wonderful. Sounds amazing. I have not made it to Europe yet anywhere. So I just can't wait to go and visit all the sacred sites in different places. And I know that there's so many of these more or less known sites that are just as potent, if not more powerful. And so I'm excited to learn more about all those things. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, you have an open invitation.
Oh, thank you so much, sister. So it's the summer solstice. We've got a new moon, a solar eclipse, and this means that, especially in this one, apparently, we're really opening some new timelines and dimensions and starting to break some ground here on this new earth. I think we've been breaking the ground for a while, but according to astrologists, there's going to be some extra energy to help us with that. How are you feeling with this energy, Jen? How's it resonating with you?
It's interesting. It's definitely been bringing up I've had a lot of introspection. Well, I mean, over the last 3 months anyway, due to obviously the situation everywhere, it's almost like, someone said this the other day, it's almost like Gaia has sent us to our rooms to have a think about what we've done.
Totally.
Funny. But kind of going on from there, I feel that it really is. There's a lot of say ancestral stuff, a lot of deep conditioning and programming that really is coming up to be seen and to be. It's almost like we're at a gateway where we need to make a decision whether we want to release that, cut it and move on. I feel that we've got our foot in both worlds at the moment, and it's almost we need to sever it and start creating where we really want to be. Your strapline is heaven on earth, isn't it? And I really feel that it's time we really woke up and realized and remembered that we are actually creating it, and it all comes down from. It's all a matter of choice. We can be in the kingdom of heaven now if we wish.
True.
But we're still stuck with all these. The old paradigm is still there, and we've got work to do.
We sure do, and I think that's why so many of us chose to incarnate at this time and try to remember, some of these ancient things that we've been trying to teach a long time. And it all comes down to unconditional love. And when I talk about the difference between kind of the 3D reality and this 5D dimension that we talk about or we're trying to get to, I agree with you. I feel like it's all about perception and our actions and our reactions. And when you get to the point of being able to release a lot of the traumas and dramas, whether it was ancestral or in this lifetime or past lifetimes, when you get to release and move on, then it starts to shift your perspective. And suddenly you go from having all these beliefs with all of these limits to all of these possibilities and beliefs without limits. And it really gives you such a sense of freedom. But it's very hard to teach that and ground that in. However, I'm excited because I see all of these wonderful little things happening within humanity that makes me think it's starting to change and shift.
Yeah. I think it comes down to people really stepping up and showing up, sharing their stories. And I think a lot of it comes through, for me personally, is through allowing that vulnerability to be seen. And that in itself allows others to be vulnerable and to see maybe their conditioning, their programming, where they maybe haven't seen it before. And I think that's what we're seeing in the collective at the moment, as the general narrative that's being played out on the earth is obviously it's still being, the narrative is of separation and of diversity and of clashing. And unfortunately, fortunately, when you zoom out to the macro level, we know that there isn't black or white, good or bad, good versus evil kind of thing. It's the game that we're playing in order to wake up and to realize who we are. And within that, we need to realize where these blind spots are, because until we accept and look into the shadows of our beliefs and our conditioning, maybe it's from our parents, maybe it's from ancestors, maybe it's from far, far before that, we have brought it into this lifetime to enable us to work with it, to realize that that's not true, that that's not actually part of who we are. It's just a game that we're playing, to realize that we can come back to that we are all one, that we are all connected, and that really is just love and just being, and we are creators. We're not the victim here. How does that resonate with you?
That resonates completely, and it's fantastic. And, part of, I think, this 3D matrix we're in, it was designed to be that way. And when you can take a look out of the box and what you were programmed and conditioned to think is the only way or the right ways, when you can step outside of that, so much magic can change. And I really like that it can change this world, like within yourself. But I like that you brought up the blind spots, because it's interesting right now. A lot of us light workers and way showers, some of us are dropping little nuggets of things that might not always look like the shiniest and brightest. I really resonate with the word apocalypse, because that's how it feels right now. And when I researched that word, all it means is an unveiling. And I feel like we've been fighting this fight for lifetimes, and there's an unveiling of the wounds that are still, a little infected and need to be cleared. And so if we can take a look at some of those blind spots, which isn't always easy to do, and sometimes it takes a few tries, that's when we can start shining that light on to alchemize it more. Because if we don't talk about it, or we just let them keep kind of being blind spots, then I feel like they're always going to draw us back in. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can intellectualize something. You can say, right, okay, I'm not, well, we've got the issue on the planet, the Black Lives Matter, the racial thing going on, and you can understand that from, you intellectualize it and say, well, I embrace all diversity, I celebrate color. But maybe what we don't realize is that actually deep in our tissues, in our DNA, we hold trauma from whatever color you are, whether you're yellow, whether you're, red, whether you're ET, we all have these prejudices, but we don't realize that they are within our tissues, that we hold these trauma from ancient, from past, but we've actually brought that in. Sorry, I'm probably going back over what we said before. But essentially, it is having these conversations, and not just that, but we have to open up, and we have to be willing to have these conversations. But I think once I've made a conscious decision to go into that healing space, it happens. There will be an opportunity that arises for me to be able to see something that I didn't see before. And then I could feel it. I can embody it and go, my gosh, that's what I believed. That was at the bottom of this patterning that's happening that I wasn't aware of, and I can feel it. And then I can let it go. I can unplug from that conditioning that I wasn't aware of. I was completely oblivious to the situation. There was an example where I was in Zimbabwe for quite a while, learning to play an instrument, and I was really welcomed into the Shona religion. And I was in Mbari, which is more kind of a ghetto area, and I was really embraced by this family. They didn't know I was coming. It wasn't organized. I was following my heart, literally following my heart. And I went to learn the Mbira, and I stayed with the family. Garakai was the guy making the instruments and teaching me. He didn't speak very good English. His wife was a witch doctor. After a couple of weeks, I was invited to a ritual, and the ritual was out in the sticks. I was the only white girl there, white person. Everybody else was indigenous. It was a beautiful tribe, if you like. And the ceremony, during the ceremony, you play continuously for 24 hours. And then the witch doctor becomes possessed. And then all the villagers come and they ask questions. And it's the ancestors that answer their questions. And at that time, I felt totally safe, totally loved. It was totally normal for me to feel that. I didn't think, oh, I'm the only foreigner here or anything like that. I was completely embraced, into the family, if you like. So it was just normal for me. And in the evenings, we'd have conversations. I'd be explaining the dreams that I had, and I had remarkable dreams there. It was all ancestral, and Garakai would explain that, yes, we're all family, and he completely understood that somewhere along the line we were connected, and it was just so beautiful to be accepted in like that. And then the other day I had a conversation about opening up to more healing around the issue of perhaps issues that I wasn't aware of, to do with racial discrimination and all that. And as soon as I did, the following morning, I just started crying, unconditionally crying. And what came up for me was this vision of me being back in Zimbabwe, which was nearly 20 years ago. I hadn't thought about it for ages. And then all of a sudden I was back in this ceremony, and I was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And what was happening was I was just releasing, because I held a belief that if, say, Garakai came to England, he wouldn't be accepted in a white village in the same way. This is what I thought. This is a belief I held. And then all of a sudden I started laughing, really loud laughing. And I had Papa G. So this Papa G came in, who I didn't know who was Papa G. And I sort of sitting here in my bedroom going, who's Papa G? He's making me laugh. It's hilarious. And I was like, right, okay, I better go and Google him. So I went onto Google, and all I was getting from him was that I am already free, that I am already free. So essentially my takeaway from that was I held a belief that I didn't know I held, was that a person of colour would come to, if they came to England, that they wouldn't be accepted into the village, into our village, in a similar way. They wouldn't be given that welcome, and they wouldn't be allowed to maybe partake into a ceremony, say, that was very British, when in actual fact I grew up in a village, so I know that's not true. And yet somewhere in me I held that belief. So we have these blind spots that we just don't know about.
Totally, and it's hard unless, you spend a little time. Sometimes you can find out exactly where that comes from. I have a lot of clients who always want to know, well, what lifetime did that come from and what happened and why? And I always say, well, sometimes, you live so many lifetimes that it'll take a lot of energy to go back and spend on all these details, when if you just sit with the energy that's coming up and that's present and allow it to come through you, often what you need to know will be revealed. So you just allowed that to move through you. You let the memory come up, you let it sit with you, and then you got to see exactly what the root was because you allowed yourself to go through it. I think that's a big part in our alchemizing process of helping the collective along, is often people don't have the time or energy or mindfulness to be present with their feelings and to be brave enough to allow them to work through them.
Yes, that's so beautiful. To allow the source and the grace, allowing the space for that grace to work through you and to feel it and to see it and to, release it, transmute it into joy. Because I went from crying to laughter in a split second. That's how quick alchemy is.
It really is. I was actually talking about you this week to several clients because you posted about smelling this beautiful rose and how it all of a sudden opened up like all these tears and grief and stuff for you. And I was talking about how if you just let yourself be present, sometimes, you know, the universe just wants to let you smell that rose so you can cry for a minute, and you don't know maybe what you're bringing up. It could be something from the collective. It could be that some girl pushed you down the slide when you were in 4th grade and you cried all day about it, but you never cleared the trauma. So it's just coming up to be cleared now. And if you allow yourself and allow your heart and spirit to lead you, and if you're brave enough, then you just keep growing and glowing, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sharing things like that. I mean, it was weird because I was like, no, I have to share. I was actually drawn to really share it. And it was amazing how many people actually responded to the post saying, yes, yeah, I smell roses too. And it has that effect on me. It allows me to release. And yet there would have been a lot of people that read the post that didn't comment. And so they were thought, oh yeah, what a lovely thing to do, to actually sit in the garden and maybe go up to a flower, commune with the flower and ask if there's anything the flower wants to help them with. You know, the same with trees. If you go up to trees and you introduce yourself to a tree, you can allow this energy to run through both of you. And it's just the most amazing symbiotic relationship that can happen, because we are all connected to everything, aren't we? You know, so we know. We are. Yeah, it's just allowing that flow of energy to move. But I think the idea that for me sharing is, I know that there's a ripple effect that goes out, that people maybe saw the post, but they didn't actually comment on it, which is obviously it's great. But if you don't always know who's receiving the message, which I think is amazing. You know,
you never do.
Like us having this conversation, you know, when you asked me, I was really nervous, and I was like, oh my God, those voices kept coming back into my head, you know, and my thought loops, and I was like, no, I'm doing it, you know, regardless of how nervous I am, I'm doing it, because it's in that vulnerability and it's in that sharing that allows other people permission to do that too.
Totally. I love it. I say, you know, and I've heard, I don't know who came up with it originally. It's hard to tell these days, but there's often great reward on the other side of fear. And our feelings are so sacred and so holy. And even fear or that nervousness really can be. I believe that we as beings, we know, and our intuition will tell us if there's a situation where it's like stranger danger or we're under imminent attack, as opposed to natural nerves and fear. And often when we're feeling that little bit of fear, it starts to rise into our higher heart or our throat, it's often, you know, an opportunity for us to speak or to share our truth. You know, Jen, I don't think any of our listeners would have had a clue you were nervous. You've been sounding like a pro for the first 20 minutes here.
No, it is amazing, because at the end of the day, it's just energy, isn't it? You know, it's energy in our tummy, and then if it rises up and it's in our throat, and it just needs to be expressed. And if it's expressed in a safe place, and this is a very safe place to express, and you know, and if it's expressed with authenticity and love, then that's how it will be received, because authenticity is always met with authenticity, and love is met with love, or received with love. That's just the way the universe is. And I think for years and years and years, I was pursuing kind of having to fit in, you know, having to be somebody, having to have a certificate for healing at XYZ, or it was a huge journey of learning, you know, crystal healing, being a certificate with Reiki, with nutrition and things like that. And I was chasing all these certificates, when in actual fact, when you're just yourself and you're just being, you know, you are an antenna and a beacon. So we are transmitters. And as long as we do everything from a place of authenticity and helping someone for the highest good of them, then we're just being ourselves. And I've come to realize that actually that's enough. I've sort of gone from doing to more sort of being, and it's made me relax quite a lot.
You said it. Yeah, it's amazing when you go from doing or being, or, I really like Rebecca Campbell's one of my favorite teachers in Rise Sister Rise. She talks a lot about shifting from pressure to pleasure and allowing that divine feminine energy to come through, which is how many of us, I don't like the word should, but it would be nice if we invited in that energy in the new earth, because it's all about listening to your intuition and knowing when you need to emote an emotion or nourish yourself or express your creativity or do physical activity. If you can quiet yourself enough to listen to it, your body will tell you exactly what it needs. And it might just be smelling a flower that makes you cry because you're releasing trauma from eons ago you had no idea and you don't even need to know anything about. It's just happening for you. And I think that's the coolest thing when you step into your own sovereignty and power and confidence and you start to finally trust, that's why I think another reason we're having a hard time really bridging between the two worlds is because we have been taught to distrust everyone and everything over and over and over again, whether it's, politics or family members or friends. There's been lies, there's been hurt, and we've had a hard time understanding and establishing trust. But when you can start to trust yourself again, and even furthermore, spirit, whatever that looks like for you, then things can start happening for you. And the universe can say, okay, as long as you take the step and hold my hand, I can help make things happen for you.
Absolutely. I think that for me, I love synchronicity and I love nudges above, I call them. And whatever it is I'm doing, it's am I on the right path? Show me. I want signs, and sure enough, they will come. It's incredible how accurate and how specific little signs can be. And that if you're open to it and you're open and aware of how the universe is continually speaking to us through everything, because we are creating our bubble that we're living in, and so it's our reflection, isn't it? Everything's coming back to validate what's going on in our inside world with what we're seeing on our outside world too, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of which, will you share with our listeners a little bit about your current magic in the world? You talked about taking some classes and certifications. What is it that you like to spend time doing now, and what kind of magic do you like to offer at this point in your life?
Well, it has changed quite a lot over the years, actually, I suppose.
I think it's supposed to with us.
Yeah, I'm continually just in the process of probably changing my website yet again. But most of my life, I would say I've played behind the scenes quite a lot, and I haven't really stepped up. I've always been working with energies. I've always seen energies. I've worked with energies. Always been aware of it since a very young age. I could read people as everything I saw in energy were patterns. So I'd see patterns of energy. The people I saw were patterns of energy, and that was how I would work. Everything was very intuitive, but I didn't really trust, even though I was always doing this behind the scenes in other businesses. I started out as a hair and makeup artist, so I was working with hair and I was working with faces, models and actresses and that kind of thing. But I was very much the mediator, and I've always had this passion to empower women to feel confident. And that obviously stems from me not feeling confident in my own skin. So I was always behind the scenes working with people energetically and physically, doing the hair and makeup and the hair. But obviously over time that I actually became quite ill because I wasn't really following my true purpose. My true purpose was much bigger than that. So I actually became quite ill, and I had quite serious back and neck injuries. And I had to, because I was traveling all around the world. It was all very glamorous. Went to some amazing places and I worked with some of the most incredible people. But I just wasn't really
all divine.
Yeah.
Even those really bad chapters, and I broke my back and neck a couple times, so I feel ya.
So I guess my understanding of what I could do really hit home when I managed to heal myself without any medical intervention. And it took a while, but I realized the power of the mind, the power of my creativity within my own body. And when I started to take responsibility for my own life, things started slotting into place quite quickly. The teachers started to arrive. My understanding of the energies in the body and how I could bring myself into a place of infinite possibilities. So we're talking looking into the quantum field, quantum physics, and how just allowing that space for the person to heal without doing anything. So it's been a long journey of learning lots of different modalities, very many modalities. I suppose Reiki was probably the one that I felt most attuned to because, just being, and it wasn't complicated. But what I did find in the end, that I started finding I was getting through my own signs, my own symbols. And so I dropped the Reiki and then started practicing my own version, if you like, knowing that it just came through from the heart. I would have signing. I would sign on my hands, sign on arms. I just opened up to more. What I realized was that I was always doing somebody else's modality. And what I had to realize was that I am enough. And what's coming through me is divine and is good enough, and people are receiving exactly what they need. So I guess to put it in a nutshell, what I do now is I do whatever I want to do, wherever I want to do it. Create if I feel like creating and making content. So it could be painting, it could be soul painting, spirit painting, it could be advice, it could be quantum healing. I sing soul song, soul language, light language, if you like to call it that. Essentially, how I understand healing for me personally, how it comes through, how I can offer it for somebody else, is that I am a creative catalyst. That is, I've tried to distill it down into something that I can describe, because I don't like labels and I don't want to be put in a box, because we are forever changing, aren't we? We are
forever.
Thank heavens.
Exactly.
We're always finding out more. You know, I'm learning new things all the time. I'm seeing different lights. Sometimes I'm feeling 5D. Sometimes I'm back down in 3D. Depends on my state of being. This depends on my health. So at the moment we're swinging in and out, aren't we? It's a continual up and down. I don't think at one, if we were in 5D, we wouldn't be here, if you know what I mean. We wouldn't be having this conversation, would we? So
exactly.
So it's an interesting place to be. But how I suppose how I bring my magic, if I bring somebody into the space, is I'm holding a space, a void, allowing them to be in perfection as they are. And then it's their body, mind, and their energy field, which will then recalibrate. So bringing them into this space, I will not necessarily do something, because I don't think it's in the doing. I think it really is in the being. I'm reflecting to them, but it's their higher self that's reflecting through me to them. And in that space, this is where the alchemy takes place. Sometimes I will sing light language, but that doesn't come through from my mind. So I'm not doing it. It's coming straight through. And that's only if I'm called and it comes through. Otherwise, I'm holding the space for them to realize themselves. It's so simple now.
It's so simple now. It's so funny because I have experienced that too, and listening to you speak, it sounds so resonant with me. And I even remember, because I don't like labels as well, and everybody's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm a lover of the human, animals, and earth, because I can't really handle any other labels. But it's so funny because one of the most, because I always knew I was some sort of healer or catalyst for healing, but when I really learned that a true healer is someone who triggers within you the ability to heal yourself, I'm like, yes, that makes sense, because I'm like, all I can do is hold the space and be a guide. And I'm someone on my awakening where I started reading people like first, and I started getting a lot of messages and giving guidance and things like that intuitively, and because I would channel mostly angels that would come through. And I loved, because a few years after that, I really invited in Reiki, and I loved working with that energy because I could just step back and be in an even different way and not even have to use my voice. You know, I could if I wanted to, but it's just so nice to let your body, and anyone is capable of that, to simply release and surrender and be of service to the divine, and then let it channel through you. Like really stepping into just holding that physical space outside of my vocal space, since I was so attuned to using that vocal space. It was really powerful, and I can totally see why you like spending time there.
Yeah. Everybody has this ability to self-heal if only they would trust that they have everything they need inside of them. You know, it really is an inside job. It's not looking outwards for the help. We can get catalyzed by other people, yes. But I think now I've come back to a point where I just want to simplify it for everybody, not to mystify it. It's like when people ask about the light language and ask what I'm channeling, and when it first came through for me a couple of years ago, and because I opened up to it, I opened up to more source coming through me, more truth, more authenticity. In fact, when it happened, I'll in a nut, I'll give you
let the story come, sister.
In a encapsulated form. My unfolding, if you like, my journey, I never really had an awakening. It's always been a very soft and gentle path, and there's always been, I suppose, there's always parts, there's always situations, I suppose, in our lives that are there to initiate us into a certain path of healing, whether it's our health, whether it's physical, whether it's more spiritual. So there's lots of different incidences, I think, that go through our lives, and I think we all have them to certain degrees. Although I obviously have a lot of friends who've had quite traumatic wake-up calls, I've been the one that's gone, oh, that never happens to me. Like, I want a huge epiphany. Right? So that's never really happened to me. It's been a gradual time. And then I've got friends say, well, look, hey, there's always got to be those people that just hold the space while people are freaking out right, left, and centre. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense then, doesn't it? You know, okay, I'll just hold the space.
I'll know my role. Okay.
But I did have the most wonderful experience when, it's quite a few years ago now, probably 5 years ago, where I had been, I suppose, very interested in the material of a guy called Bentino Massaro for a couple of years. And he's from Amsterdam but lives in the States, and he was coming to London, or he was going to Amsterdam, for a seminar. So I booked onto a seminar, and then in the December before, he was going to pop over to London before. So he was doing a very improv cafe meetup, and I was like, oh my God, he's just coming to a cafe. He never comes to England. So I said to my husband, do you fancy coming? And he was like, oh, he wasn't too enamored with his sort of style of material at the time. God, it's going to be amazing. So we went, and it was literally a few people in a cafe, and Bentino came in, and he just sat on a stool at the front, and he made eye-to-eye contact with everybody, and he was just scanning the room, going around one by one by one, and you could feel his energy. It was off the charts. And when he looked at me, I just burst into tears, and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And I realized what he was, and he was mirroring me. He was showing me who I am. And it was so profound. It was so, that room was full of so much love, unconditional love. It was incredible. And it really opened my heart, and that catalyzed me. So just being in his space catalyzed me, his energy, and me, and the realization. And then I think it was a few weeks after that, I literally made a statement, because I wanted to, you have to invoke, don't you? You have to speak out. You really want to bring something into your world, or let go of something. So my statement was that I wanted to be my authentic self. I was fed up with pussyfooting around. I think that's what I'd been doing. I thought I was authentic. I think I'd only be playing a game of being authentic. So this was, I put a statement out saying that's what I wanted to be, no matter what it looked like and what it took. So from then on, I've decided to accept all the offers that come, accept the offers that come my way and that kind of thing, and not be sheepish. But after then, this is when the light language started coming through for me.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and I realized that this was my authentic self coming through. This was on a higher level, because you can't intellectualize the words that are coming through, but they resonate as completely as a truth, because you can switch it off if you want, you can turn it on, but the healing that comes through is just exponential. It's just the most incredible thing. But everybody has this ability, like humming, like singing, and it's just the most profound healing tool, because we're opening our hearts, and it comes from a place of love. So you're not doing anything with your intellectual brain. You're not saying, oh, I'm fixing her arm, I'm fixing her tummy, I'm doing this, that, and the other. It's a flow, and I think it's for me personally. I think it's the most incredible healing tool that we have, and the ancients used to use this, and I think a lot of indigenous tribes still do, and it's something that we've forgotten.
Absolutely. Or, maybe haven't been taught, There's certain things that I know have been taken away for a reason, and that many of us are remembering on an ancient level to bring back and refoster and plug in all of those pieces that are kind of missing right now to help us evolve as a humanity.
Yes. And I'm finding the more that I'm sharing that anyway, that the more, I've got quite a few girlfriends now in Brighton who are now speaking and singing, and the one thing that I think it does do is it does allow ourselves to open up, because it sounds maybe foreign, or it just sounds really weird. A lot of people have preconceived ideas of what's coming through, because it can sound a bit gobbledygookish, if you know what I mean. And so it allows us to be free in our expression. And that's what my magic, should I choose to accept that it's my magic, because it's not my magic. But what I'd like to say is I really want to encourage people to be as authentic and to express themselves in ways that are extraordinary. And I think we've all got the power to do that, and we all should have that free feeling of expression, whatever that looks like, with no judgment, and to just to accept all our diversities. That's what I'm about, really. And making the unusual normal, if you know what I mean.
I totally am picking up what you're putting down, and I love it, and it's wonderful, and we need you here on this planet. How can our listeners get a hold of you if they want to follow along or maybe set some time up with you?
That would be wonderful. Yeah, I'm on Facebook on Jen Dodson, or my website is allthew's star-sister.com. And yeah, it would be really lovely to hook up. I'm also on Instagram on Jen.Dodson. I share, I love photography. I love making things. I love nature. So a lot of it is just free flow. Free flow. Free flow
that's from your heart. And it always, I'm a receiver because I follow Jen, and it always just comes in for me at the perfect time, or it's just a place that I was just recently visiting in my heart and needed a little more, or that gentle nudge or nurturing. And your eye is fantastic, and the creative things that come through you are beautiful. And I'm so grateful that you're choosing to be confident in sharing your art with the world, because it's fantastic.
Thank you. Every time we share, it comes back to us all the time. So there's value in sharing, and you always receive it back. It's incredible. I mean, I think it was last year when I decided to do like a 21-day Facebook Live, and I'd never done a Facebook Live, and I'd always suffered from speaking in public, and I'd be really embarrassed, and found it incredibly difficult to speak up. And so I decided to do a 21-day Facebook Live where I wouldn't have any script, or I'd have no idea what I was going to talk about, and I would literally sit in front of the camera, press live, play, and then I would focus and bring myself down into my heart, and I would just trust that whatever would come through would be of value to somebody out there. And I cried. Sometimes I would just talk about the pain that was rising in my throat, and I would just allow it to come up, and I never knew what was going to be said. And again, there were people that would comment. I had amazing support. But what was beautiful was I received so many private messages from people who suffered from the same problem. And that was enough, And I was only actually doing it for me, because I was thinking, if I can't show up for myself, then I can't show up for anybody else. If I haven't got the guts to come on, you've got to get over this. And I found it incredibly helpful. And now I can do Facebook Live, and it doesn't bother me. I still get nervous, and I'm nervous. I was nervous at the beginning of this call. But I think that's natural, like you were saying, the whole nerves thing. It's just energy waiting to be expressed, isn't it?
Absolutely. I had a biotune session with our friend Jamie Williams a little while ago, actually probably like a year ago now. And I learned that as I was trying to just come into this world, I had some like birthing complications, and I wanted to come in with this big mission, and it couldn't happen like on the timeline that I wanted. And that pattern ended up reflecting quite a bit in a lot of my experiences until I was able to see it and feel it and like clear it and transmute it out of there. But it took, someone else's perspective and gentle nudge to let me know that, and then to go back and do that healing and whatnot. You were talking a little bit about, being our most authentic self. One of my favorite quotes is Dr. Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. I feel like this whole life and this whole Earth School is a constant opportunity to do that. And we become more authentic in layers. So if you're listening to this, don't feel overwhelmed and like, oh my gosh, I'm not my most authentic self. If you start following your heart and your spirit, then your higher self, your guides, your angel team, the universe, they're going to help you to start unlayering it in a really healthy pace for you and letting your authenticity start speaking in divine time as opposed to when you feel like you should.
Yeah. And what's so beautiful is that we were talking about this earlier, we have created an amazing network of sisters on social media, which we realize many of us are going through similar issues, and we help each other You know, there's this amazing sisterhood where we can be authentic in each other's company, and we all hold a piece of the puzzle, don't we? We're all helping to nudge each other home. So
I think
in our uniqueness, you know, say I may write a blog about a certain topic, and a friend of mine, I might look on Facebook and see someone else has written on a similar on the same subject, but the delivery will be completely different, because she'll be delivering it from her perspective with her flavor, and I will be delivering it from my perspective and my flavor, but the content may be very similar. So it's wonderful that we can do this weaving together, and it will be received in different ways for the specific people when they need it.
It really is. And like for me, I like to zoom out all the time and look at the collective and swirl my energy all around the world. And when I take a look back, I'm like, I see what was happening here. I see what the plan was with this internet thing. And like, I see all these beacons of light dropped all over the world in different places, and they're transmuting things within themselves and then sharing them with their communities. And community is something that we've lost touch of in modern day society. And there are certain, types of communities, but not the way that it used to be, and not the way that it integrally or primally feels. And so what I'm seeing online is I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all these amazing soul sisters and soul brothers and soul family, and they're dropped in the most beautiful, amazing, random places. And in this lifetime, we were gifted the internet so that we can actually talk and encourage one another and help really break these chains collectively. Because I feel like in a lot of our past lifetimes, we didn't have instant communication. I couldn't call Jen, over in, the other side of the ocean right now to have this conversation. So I feel like it's been such a gift to have this technology. As much as we need to balance it and make sure we have a healthy relationship with it, it's been wonderful. And I truly feel like the days of like the witch and the healer, the alone one, the lone witch are kind of over, and we're starting to hold one another in different ways on our own sovereign journeys. And yeah, I've seen it, and it's so beautiful. And I'm so grateful to connect with you and so many of our sisters, because I can't even describe just how the most random person who I've never met in person will give me the inspiration and lift that I need on my own sovereign journey that day.
Oh, yes, it is. I'm always forever grateful for the information, to have access to the information. And I work a lot with water. I've been guided, and it's working healing with water. And it's something that I've been sort of joining the dots over the years. But because I kind of do this, it's not something I've really been speaking out about. But because of the internet, I now realize that there's other people on a similar journey that have similar connections. And now we can converse. We can compare our stories and what we're seeing and how we're seeing the energies change. And we're sharing our rituals, and we're joining together, making grids together. It's the most, it is, we are creating heaven on earth. We
really are. And that brings us to the last little section of our show. And I want to ask you, what are some things that you're doing individually as maybe part of your medicine, or that feels good, to ground in that energy, and maybe some advice that you give to yourself or clients or community about how we can, start grounding this vision in?
Well, for me, nature is my best medicine. So I spend an awful lot of time in nature. I find it very grounding. It reflects back to me everything that's going on in my life, and for me, it's accepting where we are at any given time. When we can accept where we are, we can move on. And until we can accept what's happening on the earth, and we don't have to agree with it, but we can accept that it needs to be happening in order for us to wake up the whole of humanity, so that we can go on and go forward. It's not about fighting our differences. It's not about struggling or fighting again about anything personally, you know, whether it's a physical pain that you have, accept it, speak to your body. Everything needs to be moving. The whole universe is in continual flux, off, on, off, on. It's continually changing. So we have to keep a conversation going. That, I think, is the most important. The most important thing is keeping a conversation with our body, with our spirit world, with everybody, with everything around us, is to keep that communion going with nature. That's it. Being in nature. I love putting my feet in the water, barefoot walking. I appreciate gratitude. Before I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is I'm grateful for everything. Immediately that lifts your vibration. If ever I find I'm in an awkward situation or a challenging situation, which is very, very rare these days, then it would Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian prayer. And that's the I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And that instantly disperses any energy I find that's abrasive or whatever. It's accepting where we are and moving on from there and responding rather than reacting. I think that's probably the most important thing for me.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's the most challenging part. What are some ways that you help to practice mindfulness and control your responses and reactions a little bit? What are some tools that work for you?
It is definitely whatever's coming to me, then I'm very grateful for it. I zoom out. I see the bigger picture. But I've always done this. I've always zoomed out. I've seen the bigger picture. I see both sides of the situation, and I know we live in a polarized reality. All information is just data. There is no right or wrong. There is really no right or wrong. It's what we assign to it, the meaning. Humans assign the meaning to something, whether it's right or wrong. And we do that through our bias, through our filters, through our conditioning, through our programming. And once you can raise your consciousness to a certain level, then you can be aware of that. You can see the bigger picture, and you can see that we actually are just part of a play, and we're just playing a game. And we are here to interact with that game in order to evolve with each other. So we all play a part of that game, but it's being aware that it's a game that we're playing. And I think that's it. I mean, meditation, being connected, being grounded, being healthy, being conscious of what you're putting into your body, whether it's through your ears, from what you're listening to, what you're watching. Be mindful of the words that you're using. Words are, as we know, that you literally are spelling things into being. It's being aware, being conscious, slow down.
Yeah. Absolutely. Those are beautiful words of advice. And it is about slowing down right now. We've been in this society of instant gratification and technology and Amazon Prime, and you can get anything you want at any time. And it has not always been that way. And that's not exactly how this whole planet was set up from what we can tell, and I believe there's going to be beautiful technology that assists us in the future, but I also believe it's going to be a lot of going back in time and becoming more primal and connected with the land and really appreciating, not only when you're making healthy choices to really, appreciate that food, but to really connect and with the spirit level and say, oh, I don't really feel like eating a salad today, but thank you, salad, for growing your whole life so that I could be nourished at this moment, because we really are interconnected. And when we can slow down, we can finally actually notice that again.
Yeah. And to breathe. Breathe in gratitude. Definitely.
Gratitude, it changes everything for me. And almost instantly, like if I'm not feeling the best, or if I'm like, whoop, my emotions are getting a little out of control, or I'm overthinking about things, I'll take a deep breath, even in the moment, and just go over 10 things I'm grateful for. And I can literally feel the energetic shift roll through me.
Yeah. And smile and move. Because as soon as we move and we smile, that's it. Laughter. We have to laugh more.
I agree. I'm always trying to share funny things on Facebook when I can, because I'm like, we all just right now need a giggle. Well, this was just absolutely beautiful and divine. And thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy and your heart space with all of our listeners. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Mandee. Love you.
Love you too. And thank you for all of our listeners for tuning in with us here on Heart Over Ego Radio. Monday, you can catch the lovely Jenny McDaniel and I on the Alchemy Sisters. And we're wishing you a beautiful, happy summer solstice and new season.